Her golden eyes by Tina for Rose. And this is, of course, the sequel to The Black Eyes. I'm angry. I'm absolutely livid at Kenzie for what she's done. All of those people are dead because of her. She didn't just kill them, she ate them. I can't imagine how scared they were as Kenzie dragged them to her hideout. I sometimes wonder if she killed them before eating them, or if she started feasting on them while they were still kicking and screaming. Most of all, I'm angry because she left me alone. Like the gazelle that befriends a lion, I had fallen in love with a demon. Kenzie gave me a note before she vacated the officer's body. It breaks my heart to leave you. However, I cannot take you with me. I will always be on the run. I will always be hunted. I do not want that life for you. I want you to live and be happy. Please forget about me, my love. Coming back home to our home without her in it was heartbreaking. I knew I couldn't stay there. I couldn't afford this place on my own. I had to sell what I could and throw away what I couldn't. I left the place I called home for years, with nothing but a suitcase of clothes, some pictures, some DVDs. I had to move back in with my parents. I was showered with kindness and sympathy upon my return. I appreciated, but I needed to be alone. I spent a few days in my childhood bedroom crying, not knowing what to do next. I know Kenzie was a killer. I couldn't help but miss her still. She was the light of my life, the sun to my moon. We shared so much, only for it to all go down like it did. I missed those evil eyes of her. I was lost without her. I had to get her back, and I found a way to do it. On an old forgotten grave sits a mansion, moonlight bathe. Within is a spider of tricks. Complete her games, get your fix. Lose, you will become hollow. Win, great fortune will follow. Respect the spider of games, or you will never be the same. I won't go into detail about how I found this poem, nor about how I went about finding the mansion detailed within. I don't want anyone else to attempt this. It's too dangerous. I first scoped out the area during the day. The forgotten grave is a hill on a lonely stretch of road. The mansion only manifests during the witching hour, and only if a specific ritual is done. Again, I will not detail the ritual here, for fear of someone else attempting the game. The area looked rather nice in the daylight. I could have imagined taking Kenzie here on a picnic. I returned that night. I will say about the ritual that it requires the sacrifice of the joint of one of your fingers. Hopefully that knowledge will deter people. Different fingers will determine what the great fortune is. Since I came for love, I gave the joint of my ring finger where my wedding band still resided. My finger was throbbing as I was driving towards the spot. A certain what if kept intruding in my mind. What if the mansion wasn't there? What if I had performed the wrong ritual, or perhaps the legend was just a legend? I would have disfigured myself for nothing, and I would be back at square one. I passed some trees, and the hill was in full view. Bathed in the light of the moon, the mansion loomed over me. It was a wooden structure standing 3 stories tall, probably built in the 1800s. I slowly drove up to the front porch, my heart pounding in my chest. The glass of every window was broken. I could see little broken shards here and there. They had been boarded up. The door stood open, as if inviting me inside. In the distance, I could see a few cars. They were abandoned. Many of them were old, others quite new. I could also see the bones of a few horses scattered around. They must have been left by previous contestants who lost the games. I stepped outside. The chill of the night air sent a shiver through me. It was my last chance to leave. I could never go. I could just go and never come back. However, the idea of leaving without doing what I could to get Kenzie back was more than I could take. I had to move forward. I stepped into the mansion. Everything was covered in dust and cobwebs. It was difficult to breathe. A grand staircase stood before me, covered in moth-eaten rug that I think might have been red at one point. Doors surrounded me, shrouded in darkness. In the middle of the entrance hall, I spoke my wish. I wish for my wife to become human. If she no longer needed to kill, then we could settle down. There was no dramatic announcement or acknowledgement of my wish. I heard no voices. There was no wind, no immediate danger. The door behind me didn't even shut. I looked around, not sure what I was supposed to do. I took a deep breath and started ascending the stairs. The steps creaked with every movement I made. I pulled out a low-powered flashlight. The windows were boarded. Little moonlight came in. I shone the light around as I came to a hallway lined with doors. I assumed the game had already begun, but I didn't know what I was playing. I figured the game would make itself obvious sooner or later. I opened the first door I came to. Inside was just a standard-looking bedroom. I stepped inside. I spotted a couple moth carcasses scattered about, most stuck in webs. I remembered the line in the poem, "Lose, and you will become hollow." If I was not careful, I could share the same fate as these moths. I looked to the bed. I could see a dress lying there. It was a deep, dark red, with pink frills and bows. It was covered in dust, same as everything else. I walked over. The dress looked like that of a child. I wondered if she had been a contestant, or if she had lived here before this place was what it is now. I shone the light around, wondering if I could get any other clues about the owner of this dress. I eventually came across a small photograph. The girl had long curly pigtails and held a small bar to her chest. She was wearing the dress currently on the bed. Her cheeks were sunken in, and she was sitting in an old-fashioned wheelchair. Her arms were thin as reeds. It looked like they would shatter from just the strain of hugging her stuffed animal. The bear looked pretty standard and was wearing a sailor's uniform. Perhaps this was the game. Perhaps I had to reunite the dress with the bear. I explored the room for the bear. It wasn't there. I checked the closet, under the bed, everywhere. I even checked under the mattress. It must have been in another room. I promised the dress I would bring her the bear. I don't know why, but I could almost feel a presence coming from that dress. It felt very faint. I would say it was just my imagination, but everything else hadn't been so far. Why would this? I began opening doors and searching for the bear. I saw a game room, a small library, a toilet, none of which contained what I was looking for. I nearly dropped my flashlight when I came across the stairs leading to the third floor. Sprawled on the steps was an old, withered skeleton. The body was wearing a varsity jacket from the 50s. It was stained in blood, long since dried up. There were 3 vertical slash marks up the back of the jacket. I stood there, staring at the body, my breathing heavy. I couldn't imagine what had made this. I moved closer to the skeleton, half expecting it to reach out and grab me, but it remained stationary. I could hear creaking coming from upstairs. I backed away from the stairs slowly, shutting off my flashlight. I was in near complete darkness, with only a couple of beams of moonlight coming in from the boarded-up window. The creaking was growing louder and louder. A heavy breathing sent shivers down my spine. I held my breath, clutching my chest in desperate attempt to try and silence my racing heartbeat. I heard a loud crack. I flattened myself against the wall. Whatever was nearby was huge. I could hear the breathing above me, nearly reaching the ceiling. I was already in darkness, but I shut my eyes regardless. I tried to make myself as small as I could. Hopefully, it wouldn't notice me. The steps drew closer, sending shockwaves through the floor. Whatever it was heavy. I feared it would break the floor and send us cascading into the void. I thought about those golden eyes of Kenzie. I had to remember what I was fighting for. The unknown beast paused by me. I had to stifle a gasp. There was cold radiating from the beast. I bit my lower lip, trying not to make even a little bit of noise. I heard a little grunt from above me, before it made an unnatural noise. Mama. It sounded like a child, possibly the same little girl in that photo. There was no way something this big could make a noise like that. Moreover, there was a slight reverb in the voice. It almost sounded mechanical. It took another step before speaking again. Mama. It matched the exact cadence of before. If this was a normal voice, there would have been subtle differences. It sounded like a recording. It took another step, and another. It said that damned word over and over, slowly growing more distant. When I heard the heavy steps turn a corner and get a comfortable distance away, I shined my light on the skeleton. The skull had been shattered into pieces. Perhaps the beast had stepped on it. I began to slowly ascend the stairs, careful to tread on the tips of my toes. My heart skipped a beat whenever the steps would crack. When they did, I had to pause and listen for the monster's return with the flashlight off. When I knew it was safe, I continued up. It felt like it took an hour to go up those steps. Eventually, I reached another hall with yet more doors. There was a rather nice-looking door at the end. Perhaps that was the master bedroom. I crept forward, peeking in each room. I saw a spiral staircase leading to the attic, an office with another skeleton sprawled over an open safe. The corpse was dressed in what looked like 1920s gangster wear. There was an abandoned pistol nearby. The slide was pulled back, indicating it was empty. I looked behind me, wondering if the body had some spare ammo. Perhaps I could use the gun to defend myself. I decided against it. I doubted the weapon was in working order after all these years, even if the guy had extra bullets for it. Besides, despite being a Texan, I had never fired a gun in my life. Still, I didn't know whether to check the office or the master bedroom. The bearer would probably be in one of those rooms. If the girl died young, which it looked like she may have, one of the parents could have kept the bear for themselves. It seemed like a very private trinket, so I guessed it might be in the office. I heard the creaking again. I slipped into the office. We didn't risk closing the door out of fear the hinges would alert the beast. I tiptoed over to the body and reached in the pockets. I found a familiar rectangular shape of a switchblade. I hid under the desk, holding the knife to my chest. I shut the light off just as I heard the breathing in the hallway again. I tried to breathe as quietly as I could, but my heartbeat throbbed in my ears. It was so loud I thought the monster might be able to hear it. The creature had to know I was here. The floor shook again as the beast drew closer. As one of the feet fell, I hit the button on the knife. I felt for the blade, but it wasn't there. I put a hand over my chest to try and keep myself from hyperventilating. The creature could be heard just outside the office door. Mama. That echoing voice sent a shock through my system. I reached out slowly, feeling around the drawer of the desk. I peeked out a little. I could see a slice of moonlight shining in the hole from the open door. I took the useless switchblade, pulling it back. I lobbed it as hard as I could, careful not to make a sound. The handle flew and smacked into the hallway wall. The creature began to move further down the hall, granting me a few precious seconds. I slid the drawer open and plunged my hand in. I felt something soft, so I grabbed it. I could feel a round ear and 2 marble eyes. It was the bear. I found it. I had to get out of there. I heard the beast enter the master bedroom. Now was my chance. I turned the light on, but kept my hand over the light. I only let a couple thin streams of light escape. I slipped into the hallway. The creature shuffled around in the bedroom. I started creeping towards the stairway. I was chewing on my lower lip at this point from stress. Then there was silence. It had spotted me. I started rushing down the stairs. There was an explosion of sound as the creature took chase. It was making a beeline straight towards me. I didn't bother hiding my light. I rushed down the steps 3 or 4 at a time. The monster was faster than me, but it wasn't as agile. I felt the staircase shake as the creature slid to a stop. When I finally descended the stairs, I tore down the hall. I heard the beast crash down at the base of the steps. It was getting closer. I could feel the breathing on the back of my neck. It was cold, sending shivers down my spine. I turned a corner into the girl's room. I felt a sharp pain slicing into my calf. I didn't have time to scream. I pulled myself in. The creature slid to a stop again, but the cracking from the door frame told me it had caught itself. It was about to come inside. I collapsed onto the bed, placing the bear on the dress. There was silence. I looked behind me. There was a deep gash on the door frame, made up of 3 vertical slashes, just like the body on the stairs. However, there was no sign of the creature. Yet I could feel I was not alone. I saw her in full glory, despite the darkness. She wore a thin dress of spider silk. Her skin was as black as ink. Her joints were segmented. She had no hair on her head, but her face was dotted with many red eyes. Her fingers were long and spindly, and many threads extruded from the tips. I felt no evil coming from her, just an ancient aura that was beyond my comprehension. She came to me, her feet making tiny clicks against the wooden floor, and bound my wound in silk. She didn't speak a word, just gave me a knowing nod. My wish had been granted. I left the house and drove away from that place. I drove until I could no longer. I slept on the side of the road. When I finally got home the next evening, there was an unfamiliar car awaiting me in the driveway. Someone was sitting on the hood. She looked up as I drove. Her eyes were dark. When I got out, she came up to me, tears running down her cheeks. She was a bit taller than me. Long, dark blonde curls flung over one shoulder. I couldn't see her eyes, nor did I recognise the form she took. But I recognised the pink lip gloss she wore on our first date. Kenzie and I held hands, not saying a word for a long time. There was so much she wanted to tell me, but there would be time for that later. She was only able to choke out 2 words that night. Thank you. We embraced, never to be apart again. Although I would always miss her golden eyes, I was thankful she was in my life again. Update. Kenzie's old vessel was released from prison. It didn't make the news, but I received a photo of her on a beach in a wed waitress uniform. On the back of the picture, written in Sharpie, was, "Thank you for giving me my life back." I felt a pang of guilt, remembering what she had been through. I checked the logo on her shirt to see if I could find the restaurant she was working at. It looks like she's living in California now. Additionally, the vessel Kenzie was currently in is a woman who's been in a coma her whole life. Her spirit had long since passed on to the great beyond. Kenzie and I are getting remarried soon.